All right, Manor fans, welcome back to Minifandom. I am, of course, your host, Menas, and joining me after his debut on the Kirkmanahan Show as producer, trialing for the position, we have Tommy Quinlan. Tommy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Queerland, I see what you did there. Oh, you're one for one tonight. Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good evening, my time. Good morning, your time. So, yeah, no, weird 24 hours, but hey, we're here.
We are here indeed. Thanks for coming on. I know you said on the main show you think I'm annoying. Now, first question before we get in, was that just because you know that that'll ingratiate you with the Minifans by saying you don't like me or you think I'm annoying? Because obviously it can't be true. I mean, no one thinks I'm annoying.
I would say that it's just, I think what put me over the edge was you going on there with the Maserati video and like complaining about that and complaining about Dave's approach and Kirk's approach with that. I mean, I was kind of ambivalent for the most part, but I thought that was just like a reach. So that kind of just annoyed me. And it's just more so in general, because I'm like a big fan of shows like Opie and Anthony, Ron and Fez. So, this show kind of falls in that category. And I've always found like people that call into those shows that have,
I never
just
call in.
complain or just interact with those shows and become such a large enough presence, because you are a large enough presence that you've become a fixture within the Kirkmanahan world. That it's just like, okay, like why do you, at what point, do you like, why do you, I guess my question would be like, why do you hate listen?
I don't hate listen. I absolutely love the show.
Yeah.
And you obviously
How
don't
did you
listen to
start listening to the
Minifandom.
show? No, I had to be honest. Like, so I'll be honest. I listened to more Kirk. Like, I listened to Mike and the Metafans when it started coming back because I saw the way that you guys were restarting the network, and I was interested to
Thank
see
you.
what you guys would do. And I think it's because Kirk's show is not like Barstool is not just a sports company, and I think Kirk's show shows what you could be when you're not just as trying to fall into the same trap of doing the same shit that everybody else does. So I do find it fascinating what the network has been able to, grow with over the years and stuff. So yeah, I definitely respect what you do. I just don't understand you know, the push. If you're so jaded from the show, why
I'm
listen?
not, though. I
Not,
love the show.
yeah. How did you?
I
But how
mean,
did you start? How did you start? How did you find Kirk? How do you find Kirk in Australia?
okay, well, what happened was I was a bit of a Red Sox fan, and I've told this story many times, so the listeners will have
Sure,
heard it
but
a
this is
number of
new for
times.
me.
It's
Yeah,
new for you, and if you do get the job as producer, then obviously you need to know my origin story,
sure.
like a superhero. But I started listening to Kirk through the Red Sox. Being a fan of the Red Sox in about 2013, I would listen to podcasts from EEI, um, and baseball related podcasts. And I remember very clearly listening to one interview they had with, I don't know, probably some Red Sox player or coach. At the end of the podcast segment, Kirk shat on somebody and said, "After the break, I'm going to lay into this guy." Can't remember who it was or what it was about, but I was like, I want to hear what this is about. And that's when my love of Kirk Minahan, the broadcaster, was brought about all the way back in 2013. And then I would
Sure.
stream Kirk and Callahan live at night here and listen to it. Because, as I've said, Kirk is the greatest American broadcaster in history. And, finding him was, eye opening. I'm also a bit of a broadcaster myself. So I've sort of
And
looked at
Australia
him
has
as a bit
great
of
radio. It's known for having great radio.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Talk radio is massive here. Um,
Massive.
that was
And
that
it's
was
not. I mean,
half. And so I
it's not
don't
like
hate.
yeah.
Listen, but the thing is, Tommy, I'm not a fucking sheep. If I disagree with something, or if I think they do something that I don't like or don't agree with, I will say it because I'm not afraid. But I don't hate listen. I think it's the greatest show ever.
Gotcha. Well, I also think perception is reality too, right? Because I think you're right. There are certain things just naturally with what I do in broadcasting. Sometimes I just shut it off. Sometimes I just want to go listen to Kirk. Sometimes I
Mm.
just love listening to Kirk, and that was it. And then when I found out that Dave's position was open, obviously I have to know more about the world. You're 100% right, which is why I went in there prepared as much as I could be the other night with as much Mike and the Men fans content as
You did
possible, and
great. You did
etc. Thank you. I
fantastic. And you
appreciate it.
reached out to me privately in the lead up and asked what was coming up on the network more than Cullinan's ever done.
Sure.
But I guess just onto your point is, though, that obviously for the show, the interesting stuff is when I disagree. So when I do these 2-hour Minifandoms where I'm just sucking Kirk off, that's not great radio to play,
I don't
is
think
it?
you need to. No, it's not. No, it's not. But I felt like that moment, like, because I was, like I said, I was ambivalent. Like everybody, like these are in this type of world, you're going to have factions. You're going to have people that are going to take on certain people. That's just natural. That the way this world is built, if you wanted to
Mm.
play in this type of environment. Um, I was just saying that the Maz incident felt like it was a reach, but as time has gone on, and the more that I've been able to understand you, I understand more now. Like I understand more your position. So
I'm
when
just
I
not into
said what I
cancel
said,
culture.
what do I think of cancel culture?
No, I'm not into it. I'm not into it.
Oh, you're
And I
not into
didn't think
cancel culture.
Kirk was, and I didn't think Carl was, but I was wrong, which is fine.
Yeah, I think it was different, but hey, I mean that's what they did, and hey,
Yes, it's
got the
old
show a
news.
great
It's old
pop.
news.
So that's
It's old
you
news.
know,
You and I are going to be great friends. Trust me, Tommy. I think you and I are very similar.
two peas in the pod.
Exactly. All right. So, taking care of business, the first segment in this show, which is a tribute to the New Hampshire cast. Ethan actually was mentioned on the main show this week. Painful memories for me because Ethan brushed me when I was there last year. Tommy doesn't get any of this, but that's okay. So, just some news on the network. Well, this Minifandom actually will be broadcast on the network for the first time. That is because Tommy's coming on coming on the main show, and I think I don't want to. I think this is something that should be on the network, so I'll put it on there. And I've also reached out to Kirk directly and asked if we can start putting network shows out as podcasts as well for people that don't watch YouTube and want to listen to, say, Mike and the Minifans is a podcast. And Kirk has given the green light for that. So I'm just sort of now reaching out to Dave Cullinane because he started a podcast feed, Minifan HQ, that was around for a little while. But if that's still active, then I'll go back to that and start putting all the network shows on there as audio only releases. So if you're not a YouTube fan, you can just listen to it.
I do think there is an element to YouTube that is very like I only watch Kirk. Like I only watch that show. Like I don't really listen to it. I love the fact that they go live on YouTube like that because again, I think you get to really see the show. So I love the fact that you guys put up like all the videos. Like you get to see real reactions. That's what makes the whole thing real. I think you want, that's why the show is successful because it's the realest show possible. There's a real element to everything that's happening at all times. So I'm all for the video. So I don't, when people complain about, having video and YouTube, I think it's natural. I think Spotify will inherently go to more video podcasts. So I think, if Spotify becomes an easier platform to kind of, integrate videos onto playlists, I think, this will be a video
it's
that
coming.
you can see
You
on.
can.
Yeah, it's coming. You can see it. It's coming
Anchor,
right down the
you
line.
can.
Same thing with Apple. Apple sees it.
I use YouTube as more a podcast app. I pay for the premium so you can minimize the screen, and to me it's just like another podcast app. All right, so let's get into the meat of the show. How has the reaction been to your appearance on KMS and coming out? And
It's been good.
Congratulations, by the way. So that was so brave. And I know Minifans, made a lot of fun of you, but that was a really brave thing to do.
No,
so
I would say
kudos
actually
to
the
you.
Minifans have been really. I would actually disagree with that. I would say Minifans have actually been really good. Like a lot of them.
Yeah. The ones
Here's
that
what
called
happened.
in, dropped
Here's what happened in
F
that
slur
moment.
about 10 times.
Let me explain what happened in that moment.
Yes.
I knew in that moment, and maybe other people think differently.
I knew I was gay.
I felt I was bombing. I didn't think I was doing a good job. And I just have a very high standard for myself as a broadcaster that when you're bombing, you get that internal panic. And it doesn't happen often. What happened was I didn't expect it to go there. And, you have friends in the community that are watching, right? Because I'm telling them to watch because I want, my friends to see where my career goes, right? I'm very
Yeah.
proud of wherever I go.
Your bum chums to watch.
You're right.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
you don't want to lie in that moment, because then you're lying to them and then you're letting them down. So, I just had to be real. Like, you were going to see it. Like, come on. I'm 32 years old. I'm single, and I haven't really been in a real relationship in 10 years.
So you never told your parents, your
Never.
sister knew, and your workplace didn't know?
No.
Okay. So, again, super, super brave to do it.
Because
In
what are
that
you going to do? What are you
environment.
going to, because exactly in that environment, because what are you going to do? You either freak out, lose your shit, walk out of the show, and then I become, I look like an asshole on the show. And then,
We kind of opened the door though with your answer. Like, you could have just said, "Oh yeah, I've been seeing some casual girls around, but nothing serious," and then people just leave it.
Sure. Yeah, but it's just but again, when you're in that moment and shit
Oh,
was
I'm glad
just
you did.
bombing and you're trying to impress somebody, it's an interview and you've got how many ever thousands of people are watching on a Sunday night. It is a little bit of a stressful situation in that
Absolutely.
moment. And I should have done better, and I'm very disappointed in myself today more than anybody.
You shouldn't be disappointed in yourself. You did it. I mean, you
Absolutely.
what? There in the end.
Absolutely disappointed. I should have handled that
What are
a
you
million
disappointed
times
about?
better. Um I just didn't feel like I just didn't like what I was doing up to that point. And then once I was able to once everything came out, okay, now I can just be myself and just fuck it. We're just gonna go from here. But it's just I don't know what I could have done better to kind of avoid that, because that's not a moment that I was looking for personally,
Mm.
you know? Not that he put me in that moment, not that I'm gonna necessarily blame him, but that's in that moment, that's not what I should have, granted, it's what the show is. I should know better, but
But surely you've come
your
up
mind's in a
against this
million different
before
places.
in your personal
And
life. Like, surely you've come up with this before. It's not the first time you've been asked who you're seeing, or like, surely you've got
yeah, but it's easier
things
to
you
play that
say to
off
people.
when you're doing it in front of your radio idol and you're doing it in front of his audience, and then you got to go to work 12 hours
I
or
know.
less than 12 hours. You got to be headstrong. It's a different level of fucking being fucking putting your head down and going.
Mm.
I want the job. That's not in dispute. But you got a lot of stuff going on around, so you just got to manage it all. It's not easy.
And
You got the family at, because it's a real moment.
so what is the regret that you did it on the show? Like, you didn't call your fan, like it wasn't something
It's
that
a
you could
regret that
do
I didn't talk to
beforehand?
my parents beforehand. I regret not talking to my parents beforehand, and I've been dealing with that a lot today. And
Doing okay?
uh, it's been a tough day. It's been a
I'm
tough
sorry to
day.
hear that. I mean, that's coming out is a massive
But
occasion in someone's
I
life.
blame myself for not having the courage to tell them earlier.
Mm. I mean, in some
Because
ways, you should thank
yeah,
Kirk.
I don't know if I'd put it that way, but it's but you're right, because does it release a massive anchor off my chest? It's a fair question. Did he just rip the Band-Aid off for me because nobody else was going to do it?
Mm.
Maybe if I knew him for a year, it would have been a little bit different, right?
Mm.
But, I think it's tough because I blame myself for not being more transparent about where I was in my life, but I didn't feel like I needed to be, because I was still just going through it. And, a real moment played out in front of everybody's eyes last night.
Yeah, well, I guess congratulations in some way. Like, I think,
It doesn't change
it's such a
anything.
no,
I
but it
still might
is
not get the job, so
no,
it
but I
doesn't.
think as a person, it's changed something that you can now be who you are. Like Tommy
I was still
Quinlan
going to
with the
be,
eight
yeah,
and a
but you're going to
half
fight.
inch cock, fucking smashing guys, having a great time. Nothing, nothing to hide behind. Like, you can just be you now.
Yeah. And you know what? I enjoyed what I was doing before too, though. It wasn't a problem. Like I do my little broadcast. I do my little radio show. I go home. I focus on my career and what I do in my personal life and do in my personal life, and never interfered in my professional life. This is the first time those two things ever crossed over.
I think you're still young. Like, I think these things
But
will eventually
yeah,
come out anyway.
yeah, they will. But on your own volition, right?
Yeah, but I think you, as I said, I think the way you
But
handled
again,
that, you can
yes,
blame
because
nerves. You can blame nerves, but you opened the door by saying that ambiguous answer. Like, you could have just shut the
absolutely,
door.
because I fucking, and that's where I blame myself for sure. But that's where I felt like, oh my God, like this is going south. I got to sit here for at least another hour and 15 minutes, and nothing's working right now.
But there's
Fuck.
extremes. Like, okay, it's not working, but then also you don't have to reveal the most personal, private thing that you've got.
Yeah, but again, I did, but that's on me for not anticipating that question.
Fair enough. So you said today's been a tough day. Sorry to hear that. I mean, how's your family taken the news?
We're talking through it. I
Okay.
don't think they're going to want to be as part of this. They helped me out last night. I don't think they would do the whole radio thing. I've kind of kept them out of it for the most part of my career. Last night they stepped up.
Absolutely, because I was sort of watching on delay last night, so I tweeted out I thought you weren't doing a great job, but I was like an hour behind. And for me, when it really turned the corner was when you called your mum, because I thought that was so gutsy. Like, that must have been so difficult for you to do. Like, she was watching, she just got this news that although she knew about, apparently she still saw it on a podcast on YouTube rather than you telling her privately, but she was fine on the phone. So incredibly gutsy to call her. Yeah, that must have been tough.
Again, it comes down to you either roll with it or you back down and you go into a corner.
And you rolled with it. So great. And you seemed like you were having a great time on the show, laughing a lot. I mean, that laugh of yours when Mike got you going, it was great.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, listen, Mike's very funny. I've always been a big fan of Mike. Sort of like, it's like when you see your favorite comedian for the first time, it's like you maybe laugh a little bit harder because it's that first experience seeing them in person so close.
Wow. And then how was it going to work today?
I didn't sleep last night. I stayed up all night. Came home, probably stared at the wall for about 20 minutes. Went to the gym around like 1:45 in the morning. Lifted, and then just went to work. Normal day. Head down.
Did you get some sleep after?
Yeah. I crashed.
Well, thanks for joining me then on the show.
I'm actually taking tomorrow off just because I just need a break.
Wow. Well, you had an intense 24 hours.
Kind of an intense 24 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone say anything at work?
No, just I kind of just put my head down at work today. Nobody would really know that, at least in the morning, during the morning shift. I mean, we're talking about a talk show audience. We're talking about a completely different audience. Yeah, they're all asleep. So, and it's Rhode Island too. People know who Kirk is down here. We have a lot of Rhode Island listeners down here that listen to Kirk, that also listen to the morning show. So, there is some cross-pollination there, but for the most part, it didn't really, it's still very new.
It is still very new. I mean, this is a new world for you, and I'm really not making light of it. It's and it was a great show. It was a fantastic KMS show. And you're right, you were struggling a bit before that. I thought the flow, you're just struggling to get into the flow. But every producer does that. You're not Robinson Crusoe alone there. And I think whether you came out or not, I think you would have got more into the flow as time went on. But huge respect for you. Just swung for the fences. I mean, you've played all your trump cards. The suicide you played with Montante on Montante as well. Now you've come out on KMS. I mean, is there anything else you want to tell us about?
No, my sister threw the Disney thing out there, so I can't play that one anymore.
I mean, that's not even that bad.
Yeah, places the
We,
sort. Cheerleading, use that one.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I would suggest maybe, do you know Alex Reamer, or do you know anyone you can talk
Yeah,
to
I know.
about?
Yeah. There's plenty of people I could talk to.
Well, you should talk to someone about what happened, because it's a big thing what you did,
Oh
and
yeah,
it was a great show.
I was talking to people all day. I mean, there's
Great.
people that I know that that just have been very supportive. I mean, Reamer, I knew Reamer. I was doing Herald Radio back in the day with Shattuck, and he was co-hosting. I think he also won Totally Patriots the same year I did, which was like a kids show on WBZ. Yeah, like there's plenty of people I can talk to for sure. Just yeah,
Good. Well,
that's not a problem.
okay. Well, so I'm sending you all my best, Tommy. You're very brave. Really, the listeners loved it. I know. Everyone. The Minifans will shit on and make fun of everything. So that's just, you got to accept that. But
Well,
you're
that I
incredibly
know.
brave.
That I'm aware of. Like that I'm not afraid of. Like that's like, if you want, like, successful radio shows have very critical people part of it. Like that's definitely part, like, the reception to the video that I put out wasn't great, but Kirk didn't hate it. So it's like, hey, you know what? It's not everything's always going to be a home run with people, but as long as the effort's appreciated on the other end, then there's nothing else you can ask for.
And look, your DMs will be lighting up now that you've come out, because you also dropped the 8.5-inch cock on there at the end. So I am sure you will be very popular in Boston. I don't even know where you live, but you'll be very popular over the next
Providence.
couple of months. Providence. Oh, is that P-Town? Is that like
No, that's Provincetown.
Provincetown, right? I bet you go there a lot as well.
No, I've never been.
Okay. All right. Now I want to get into some show stuff. When did you start listening to KMS?
Probably when Kirk left radio.com. I started with Steve, and then I was living in Florida at the time, and my career started just not necessarily spiraling, but when you're working for a mom and pop radio station, every day is a fight. And that's where I was in Pensacola. So I probably fell off for a little bit. I would dip in and out. And then when I came back up to Boston, in Providence, I started listening to Kirk more regularly again. But that, I became an everyday listener, I would say, when Dave took over.
Okay. So you've just been listening for the last 2 years to every show.
2 years, but again, I know the big moments. I know the Curatone moment. I understand. When Curatone, tomato, potato, Joe Curatone.
I'm helping you.
I'm a New Yorker. I can say my Italian last names, my friend. Thank you.
Curatone.
Yes, thank you. Curatone. Yeah, I know the Cullen story. I know a lot of the EEI stuff. When I was living in Florida, in Pensacola, I would work out in the morning. I'd go to the gym around 3 o'clock in the morning. That's where I first started really waking up really early and, working out before work, because it just helps get me going just to have a better show.
Kirk does that sometimes. He used to run at like 4 a.m. before his Kirkmanahan Show.
Yeah, and I was living by myself in Pensacola, and I was just on an island, and I just needed to have as much energy every day to go into every. So I was living in Pensacola. I was listening to Kirk and Callahan because it's an hour behind, so I'd be able to listen to the first hour of Kirk. So before my radio show would start, I'd actually call in to Kirk and Callahan pretty religiously, and would just shoot the shit whenever. So, like, that's when I would say I became pretty religious to following Kirk.
And you'd heard Kirk though before on the radio, is that right?
That's right with Kirk and Jerry. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where I would call in 2017. Yeah,
So you call into the Kirk and Callahan show.
regularly.
Mm. It's funny how, I sort of think back to that period, and I just love that show, Kirk and Callahan. I thought, no show will ever be better than this. Like, this is just, this will never be matched. Yet now, the Kirkmanahan show is like 10 times better than Kirk and Callahan was.
Yeah, because he can be himself. Like, and it's it's not just all like it's a regular. Do you know what Ron and Fez is? Like, have you listened to any of that?
I only know about them because of, I think Blind Mike talks about them, but I've never heard them.
Those types of
There
radio
is one
shows.
listener to the KMS show whose nickname is Fez, who's a complete dropkick. Continue.
Those types of radio shows that have those types of cult followings that are got very strong listeners, very passionate listeners, very engaged listeners. Those don't exist nowadays. So that's why this show is, in my opinion, special because it's the last of a dying breed of shows that have real cult followings. Like, I don't think any show at Barstool could say they have what Kirk has. Who has a network of fans that just talk about the show, what happens on the show?
Yeah. It was a big day for the actual Kirkmanahan network because Mike and the Minifans was featured on Barstool Radio.
Which should say something about you guys.
What is that, sorry?
I said it should say something about you guys.
Well, I
Because
mean, I think
the fact that the network has, I think, grown to such a point where I think it's, people need to know, like, hey, I got to pay attention to the network on top of paying attention to Kirk because there's so much shit that goes on around. It's not just blowing you. It's just being, that's just being real about why this thing is why I think this thing is one of the last ones to ever exist.
But it's sort of that actual situation encapsulates the Minifan world. That, okay, so there's Mike and the Minifans, obviously a wrap-up show, and I don't think there's many other Barstool podcasts that would have a wrap-up show. Then, one of the Minifans is the waiter for Kirk and Jeff Lowe, and then that waiter then comes on the wrap-up show to talk about people splitting a bill, which, like, in no other shows would that be talked about. No one would even think about it. But yeah, because the Minifans are insane, David comes on, talks about that, and it just sparks a whole new conversation. And yeah, credit to David for coming on and dobbing them in.
Yeah, I think it's again all part of why the reason why this thing is successful. I think I honestly, it has to be the most successful podcast at Barstool. Has to be. I like Barstool Radio is its own thing, but it feels like it's kind of insulated. And this thing is insulated too, but it is more, I think it has more of a reach because I think like a lot of people know, obviously, I think more people know Kirk, especially since he's joined Barstool. Like I think more people know Kirk than people realize. And I think because the response that I've seen today is unbelievable. Like it's wild. It's fucking wild.
And I don't even think it's the size of the audience. Like there's much bigger podcasts in terms of listen, but the engagement, the locked in, having to listen to everyone. Pardon my take. I would imagine
most of these people.
Pardon my take listeners would never do a wrap up show on Pardon My Take. Be like kicking footballs and drinking beer.
It's most of this is again a relic of what was the golden age of talk radio from New York.
Yes.
This is what would happen on Howard's shows? Yeah, I've been to Plymouth.
You've been to Plymouth.
I was lucky enough to go. Had something going on whenever he had something like whenever he has the live shows. I usually had something going on at that time, so I couldn't make it.
You must have been, as a sound guy, as a producer, you must have been sitting there sort of not hearing the sound, thinking, "Oh boy, Cullinane is going to get in trouble."
I thought, "Oh boy, he's fucked."
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing I heard out of that night. But did you have a good time with the Minifans? I mean, I love the Minifans. They are great people. That's why I do the network, because I love the Minifans. It's like a family. There's all these characters, and everyone despite the shitting on each other, everyone does sort of love each other.
Yeah, again, I go back to it's the last of a dying breed. It's the last of a real type of podcast, whatever you want to call it, radio show size audience, where you have people that are willing to travel anywhere. They love doing live shows. They do live shows. They have wrap-up shows like this. They have characters that are part of the world, and you have regulars and everything. Like, if you go back and listen to Opie and Anthony, Ron and Fez, like, this is the model for a really successful, fucking wild cult-like brand.
And if you were to get the job, and I know we're jumping the gun a bit here, but say you were lucky enough to be the one given this role,
where do you think
would
my
you
chances stand?
Okay, where do I think? I think it's too early to tell. I think there's a real
If
push for
it was
Justin.
between me, Mick, and Montante,
Well, I think Mick's probably out now.
it
So
shouldn't take that long.
what shouldn't take that long for me to answer this?
Between me, Mick, and Montante.
I really like Montante, and I think he could do a great job. I think he could do a fantastic job.
He'd break in 3 months.
Ooh, okay. My
I love you,
thoughts
Michael.
my thoughts around you getting this job are you've actually had experience producing audio and video and radio, and I think that is really important to someone producing a podcast. Surprise, surprise. Someone has experience producing a major show, so I think you've got a really good chance. And probably now you and Montante are about neck and neck. And I think it will come down to your second appearance, because you've swung to the rafters with, you've hit a home run the first time, but what's the second Tommy Quinlan show like? That to me will be the real test.
The second Tommy Quinlan show, now that the nerves are out and now there's really, nothing for me to fucking try to play defense on. It's probably a little bit, more like what Dave was doing. And then short term, just, hey, throw topics out, try not to insert sound without it being asked for, I think I just
don't do what Dave did. Be a lot more
much.
diligent than Dave. And I would suggest, sure,
but in terms of like what I bring to the show, there's not going to be that first time, you're not going to get that. Like, I'll have sound for sure, but like, I'm not going to try to get creative unless I'm told to get creative.
Yeah. I mean, one pro tip is don't say what's said in the sound before playing it. You just say to Kirk, hey, I want to play something the BA said, and then you play it and then get his reaction. A couple of times you said, oh, I want to play this. This is what they said. And Kirk was like, well, you've just said it. So I think you've just got to be gutsy on that. But would you work closely with the network if you got the job?
Yeah, because I think the network's part of the show. Like, I think the network is a big part of the show. Like, again, it goes back to my view on Ron and Fez and Opie and Anthony. Like, and Howard, they made their audience the news of the day.
Mm. Yeah, I mean,
something's going on in the world that's worth talking about. Hey, if you want to talk about it, let's go. And that's on him to decide whether or not he wants to go with it. But I think the world is definitely, especially after today, appearing on Barstool Radio, clearly there's a value to having this. And I think people will get a kick out of all the backstabbing and the factions and the drama.
Yeah. And my
vision for creating a successful environment.
And my vision for the network is if we have 2 or 3 shows a week regularly, so like you have Mike and the Minifans every week, and then you just have other shows that sort of come on once a month or twice a month, but you have quite a few of them. So then you sort of get 2 or 3 good shows a week. I'm trying to build a sustainable network, because a lot of people have what's called pod fade or show fade, where they go, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it every week. And then, 4 weeks into it, they realize, oh, that's a lot of work. and then they just drop off. Whereas I want people to come up with shows that are sustainable, and if you've only got capacity to come on once a month and talk about the show, do that. Because if you get, as I said, 4 or 5 of those doing once a month, then you're going to have enough every week to keep the network going. So sort of just hopefully locked in a new producer for the network to help people. I've got some terrible pitches. I mean, Andrew Augustus, who's applying for the same job as you, he sent me a pitch today to play a baseball card game on the network. Like play, those baseball card games where you play and it has the plays and everything. He wants to play that on the network. I'm like, okay, fine, but that's going to be terrible.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. It's not, because I don't think this is a sports show. This is not a sports brand.
It's not a sports brand. Absolutely. It's definitely they never talk about sport.
They never talk about and again, I think sports is obviously part of Kirk's world in a very big way, and but
yeah. So if you get the job, hopefully, we can work together on the network. Do you feel bad going up against Montante? I mean, you were just shitting on him before, but I heard you on his show. Now you two are locked in battle.
Here's what happens in time of war. The Germans and the Russians at one time. The Germans and the Russians at one time didn't get along, right? But after time heals all wounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's wartime.
Okay,
once wartime's over, everything's all peaceful. Yeah.
To answer your question, I think Justin's a real wild card because for some reason Mike's pushing for him. Obviously, Kirk knows him. He's done the producing before, so there wouldn't be a lot of technical know-how needed to be taught to him, unlike Montante. I think Justin's a real wild card. I don't think he can mentally cope with the job. So I'm reticent to recommend him. And then the other one is John Rich. He's at Barstool. Dave Portnoy's given him a massive endorsement. Apparently, he's turned the rundown around. If John Rich just blows everyone out of the water and says, I'll move to Boston, maybe he could just sort of come in and from nowhere, but he doesn't listen to the show. So, that is a big negative. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to play out. I don't think Andrew Augustus will get the job. I don't think Beyond Average Mick will get the job. I think you're one of the front runners because of your experience. But I think at the end of this week, we'll have a much clearer idea on sort of where you're sitting. Yeah. Do you think this will affect your current workplace?
I put out a tweet last night that said last night was probably career changing. My current workplace, I don't think it'll affect anything. If I don't get this, I don't know how I can keep, I don't see many conservative radio talk stations that look at me as a winner anymore. So that's probably, because that's what I do for the most part when I'm not doing my show, which is not necessarily right, left, or in the middle. It's just news. When I'm in there as a fill-in talk show host, I'm a little bit more right-leaning. Surprise, surprise. But
how does that work with your beliefs and lifestyle?
Sure. I think nobody lives in a silo.
Yeah, that's
nobody
right.
lives in a silo. And I think you got to be open-minded to everything. I think there's a lot of antiquated thing, especially living in Pensacola and living in Florida and living in the Deep South. You see the antiquated, hard right thinking up close and personal. But I think there's I work in the news world, so I see the fuckery.
Right.
Nobody's clean. Nobody's clean.
Do you vote for the Dems or the Republicans if you want to say it? You don't have to.
Yeah, sure. I could say I voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020.
Montante just came, by the way.
Exactly. I believe there are some really good Democrats out there, but there's nobody out there that's stealing the mic away from Trump right now, no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
Well, I can't imagine many members of your community would have. Do you have those conversations
No,
with them?
I
No.
mean, I think a lot of it's cultural based. I think there are some things that, like, I like, who's a very, just the most, I think the most well spoken person in general is Bill Maher. I'm a
Right.
Bill Maher guy.
Okay.
So I like his views about how, listen, there's some batshit crazy ideas on the right. We all get that. But the way the left is going with all their views on culture and society, while a lot of it, does make sense for today, most of it just makes people look crazy. Like, I think experimenting with um, hormonal drugs for kids at a young age is not something we should be doing right now. I think, that's something that at the moment we should just wait until a kid is 18 so they can make that the decision. I think that's tough to do that, when they're 12 and 13 years old or 3. It's a little much. So it's kind of, I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I do
Sounds
support
like you.
all kids that, do want to be who they are.
Yeah. Right.
But I think experimenting with something that extreme at a young age, it's a little much.
And maybe you're finally who you are. So.
I've always been who I am, Manners. Like, I've always been who I am. It's one of those things
No,
where I
you're
got
not
caught.
though. If you're not though, if you can say that, but if you're not telling your family and your friends and um, your
But I
work
was.
colleagues, you
That's
don't
the
have to.
thing.
But I'm
Like,
just
hold on,
saying.
wait. I was telling them. Like, I was starting to come out in January. I
Okay.
was telling friends in January. There was, my sister found out in April. Like, it was all moving along. Like, actually the way I wanted it to.
So you were becoming who you were slowly.
Slowly.
Yeah. As you said, they ripped the band-aid off. I mean, yeah, it's as I said, it's a big thing, and you did great. You really did great, and just on the show though. So you've told me about what you love about the show. You started after Steve left, so you like the Cullinane
I
era.
wouldn't say I started after Steve left as much as it was, you know, it was hard. Like, I dipped in and out because I was so entrenched in my shit. Like, I
Mm,
couldn't keep up with Kirk.
I
Like,
hated
sometimes
Steve.
when you,
I hated him.
he's adorable. I love him.
I hated
I
him
love him.
because like I think Dave's a little bit inept, but he's sweet. He's a sweet guy, just
Steve's all
lovable idiot.
business.
Yeah, and Steve's a liar. He would dox Minifans. He would try and get them fired from their jobs. Like he's a really, I wouldn't say nasty person, and he's got a sort of a bit of an evil streak to him. Whereas I think Carl's just a little bit inept. But okay. So then, as a listener, how have you charted Dave Cullinane's slow decline, or not even slow? I mean, didn't even start at great heights, but I had such hopes for him, huge hopes for him. And I almost even until he lost the job, I thought he and Kirk were had a sort of gentleman's agreement where Kirk was like, you know what? Don't worry about the socials. Don't worry about this stuff because we're not making money off it. Just focus on the show and the live stuff, and that's where we make our money. But clearly, that wasn't happening. I mean, how have you seen it?
Dave's decline.
Yeah.
I would say probably within the last couple of months, it started to sound a little bit weird between them. It sounded like something was off. But you know what? Coming from somebody that works with somebody and sees somebody every day for 3 hours a day, and really 4 hours a day, and then you got to catch up late. Like, it's a lot. Personalities wear on each other after a while. So sometimes you just need some space, and when you have that much pressure on you, You know, I think it's a lot, and you want to do well, and you want to, you know, build out this thing and try to make it as successful as possible. But you know, sometimes you just get caught up with the you just get caught up with being around each other too much. Like, that's why I don't hang out with Gene outside of my radio show.
Yeah.
Like, it's better just that we just have our relationship in the studio, because, you know, too much time around each other, it's gonna cause a lot of friction. And yeah, I mean, this job does require you to be around each other a lot. It's just, you know, for me, if I did get the job, you know, the thing that he said last night that you have to be fully aware of is just always be 4 steps ahead. Always be thinking 4 steps ahead.
Yeah, Dave wasn't, and the social media is just an example of that. And what I think is so surprising, and
can I ask you about the social media?
Yeah.
Okay, so break it down for me. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. How would you do it? Well, what would you do with the Facebook? What would you do with the Twitter? What would you do with the Instagram?
Okay, so for first thing, I would get a piece of software to schedule out posting. So you don't have to be doing it all the time. I use something called Buffer. So, you know, the show ends, you can make clips, you can make content, and you can just set it for the next 48 hours on all the platforms. So that's the first thing I'd do. So it's automatically done.
I'm showing a little like here tonight. I hope you don't mind.
Well, I like it. You know, I think Twitter needs more of a voice. As Kirk was saying, I'm just ripping this off him, but, you know, it doesn't really do much apart from sharing clips at the moment. So I think Twitter is something you'd want to actually be more engaging with people and actually.
And okay, so what define engaging? Like, is it
like
a
reply
polls?
to?
Is it
You might polls? You might reply to other Barstool content. You as I said,
what do you think about spaces?
I think they're not bad. I think a daily post KMS wrap-up show would be good. They used to do one a lot. So it used to be Justin, actually, when he was working for the show, would do a wrap-up show after every show. So it'd be that night with a different Minifan. That's something that could be done on Spaces or live on Twitter. So I just use Twitter to get more in battles with people, you know, try and stir shit up. And Kirk said this, I'm just saying what he said. And then Facebook and Instagram, I'm not a big fan of those platforms at the moment. I think they're slowly dying.
But they want them utilized.
Absolutely. I would just be posting clips of the show there. So you probably make some clips for Twitter. I would just be posting those 3 or 4 as well on Instagram or Facebook. Because as Instagram hadn't had a post for 3 months, Facebook since January, it wouldn't be hard to just do the same clips on those platforms. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of those. But TikTok's where obviously the show needs to be. I don't know what Barstool's strategy around TikTok is, but real format is the way to get.
You're not concerned about TikTok at all?
Concerned why?
I mean, I'm not. I think it being a Chinese controlled app, and it's being masked as this cute little fun video platform.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm concerned about that. They're getting so much data.
So, I mean, at some point, do you think it's going to survive? Like, do you think TikTok's going to still be around, or do you think at some point it just goes away? Is it worth?
Some countries have banned it. I think it could go away at any time when the secrets come out about what's going on in China. For me, it doesn't bother me, but I know if you worked for the government, if you worked for the government in any role, you shouldn't have TikTok on your phone. That is just non-negotiable.
So shouldn't that be alarming?
Okay, I'm talking about growing KMS here, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So aside from whether China's going to find out that you've come out on a TikTok or a reel,
right.
I know.
Absolutely. Thank you. The Chinese would be fascinated to watch that last night's episode. I think every country, there's one person from every country in the world that would be fascinated to watch what happened last night.
I
do a case study on it.
Yeah. But you know, reels and the same format on TikTok gets massive consumption, and it's
reels
a huge
is different.
I
agree.
It's a huge way of growing the podcast. I know from some podcasts I produce, you know, one of them, just the TikTok account goes off in the States to the point where we just get constant downloads from people discovering us on TikTok. So I would definitely be, putting those videos that you put on Twitter, converting them to reels, and you can put reels on Instagram and TikTok in the same format. And you would see, I would say, millions of views. I mean, if you look at their case page, some of their case TikToks got over 1 million views. So that'd probably be the strategy I'd be looking at.
Cool.
All right. Couple of listener questions. Anything you want to raise on the show? Anything you want to put out there about your application before we get into listener questions?
No, I'm good.
You've done great so far. It's great to have you on, Tommy. I'd love to get to know you. I did listen to you on Montante as well, but it was like 3 hours, and I switched off before you got into the suicide talk. So maybe I'll have to go back and listen to it. I won't make you rehash it here.
You want to talk about it?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. Okay. Well, I do have a question though. So you were hosting the cheerleading competitions, but not running them,
right? So I was the MC.
So is that when you knew you were gay? Like when all these hot chicks were there, and you were just like, nothing's happening?
No, I knew at a young age that I had a girlfriend at the time. It was, something more, I would say, that happened when I was later in college.
Yeah, right. An encounter with someone that you enjoyed, or?
No, just probably no.
You don't have to.
What happened was okay. I was in high school, and I wasn't playing sports, and I was an announcer, and I wanted to do this shit. Obviously, no idea why. And I just kept on taking little gigs when I was a kid because that's how I made money. Public address announcing, little gigs here and there, whatever. And that was a good, $250 day right there for
a
16-year-old, 17-year-old. So
how good, all those cheerleaders.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had a girlfriend for multiple years at the time that was like my high school sweetheart and everything, and
it was like you didn't get a boner while doing that hosting because everyone would have seen it.
I can keep it professional. Boner. Yeah,
good. Keep it very professional. And so you're probably aware of this, or maybe you're not, but there's a few minor ladies that are very attracted to Kirk. You can just see them sort of throwing.
I think 2 of them sat behind me.
Julie really wants to pound him. Like it is very clear. And a couple of others, I'm not going to name names. Okay. But you said he was quite attractive at Plymouth. Was that just a way of ingratiating yourself with him, or true story?
I like the suit. I did like the suit, so I thought he looked good.
And powerful men are attractive.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now let's get into the list of the questions. All right. Okay. This is from Nipples. This is for you, obviously. Which is better, Olneyville, New York system, or Winorama? I don't know.
Wienerama. So they're both wiener places up here, which they're not hot dogs. They're wieners. They're made a little bit differently. I haven't been to either of those places, which is like sacrilegious for Rhode Island. So I can't say either right now. I also haven't been to Stanley's yet in Central Falls. Am I missing anybody else? George and Ernie at Wienerama, Olneyville system. It's Olneyville, by the way. It's not Olneyville. It's Olneyville.
Okay.
Say that to the Rhode Islander. I sat next to Nipples. I met Nipples too, by the way. Nipples sat next to me. I think one of the girls that wanted to bang Kirk was sitting behind us.
Yeah, right.
It was a collection of Minifans.
Ted Sarandis. What does Tommy think of the fact that Andy Mayo thought he was a fictional character?
Probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen on the Kirkmanahan Show.
Are you a Mayo guy?
After his latest appearance, yeah, I'm all in on Mayo.
Good, yeah. I'm great friends with Maher. This is for me. If I lived in Sudbury, Massachusetts, rather than Sydney, Australia, would you have the KMS producer's job already wrapped up? 100%. I'd have actually probably taken over a year ago, in truth. I mean, if I lived in Sudbury, Mass, not only would I be producing KMS, but it would be a fucking juggernaut. And I regret the fact that I don't live closer. I've thought about emigrating. I've thought about blowing all the other applicants out of the water. I could probably start in January. If you're interested, Kirk, it would take me a few months to tie everything up. I also need a green card, Kirk, if you can arrange that. But yes, absolutely. And Ted Sarandis, what do you think of the incredible response to the KMS network rankings? Ted, they suck. All right, now what is the Tommy Steaks nickname about?
I eat a lot of steak for a living, and I post it on social media.
Okay, so Sunday afternoon, fullbacks has asked, and I'm a big steak guy, so I'm looking forward to this. Take us through your full process of making a steak. Include shopping, where, what cut, prep, cooking, post-cooking. Let's compare.
So I usually go to Whole Foods because they usually have the best meat cuts around here. So usually go get like a good London broil from like Whole Foods.
What is it you love about steak, by the way? Big
just like red meat
in your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Get the dick jokes in there. There you go.
I love a bit of meat in my mouth too.
Come on. There you go. I know.
Big juicy red meat in my mouth.
There you go.
So you go to what cut? So broiled. What did you say?
London broil, or filet mignon.
London broil. I don't even know what that is. And then how do you cook it?
Probably. So I season it with like this stuff called Dale seasoning. It's like a marinade. You rub it on there.
So it's a rub, not a marinade. It's a dry rub.
No, it's a marinade. It's not a dry rub, but like obviously I spread it on there, right? I don't just shake it. I spread it on there.
Yeah.
So season it, spread it on there. Leave it in the fridge for a couple of hours, probably, or a day.
Yeah.
And then take it out, medium rare on the grill.
In the fridge, do you cover it? Because if you don't cover it, leave it in the fridge, you get a bit of an aged flavor. Interesting. And then how do you grill it? How do you grill it?
So
how do you eat it?
Cook it on low temperature for the first couple of minutes. Let it sit on each side. And then I'll grill it up. I'll turn it up for like the last minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Flip it. How do you eat it? Medium rare?
On each side. Medium rare, yeah.
Yeah. Sides? What's your go-to sides?
Mashed potatoes, broccoli, asparagus.
Sauce? Mustard?
Béarnaise sauce.
Béarnaise sauce. Now, do you make that yourself? Do you whip it up yourself, or do you buy it?
I buy it. Or peppercorn sauce is good too.
I do like pepper sauce. I'm a big pepper sauce.
Peppercorn sauce. You know what peppercorn sauce is?
Yes, we have it here.
Okay.
I love it. It's like gravy with peppercorns in it.
Regular food out in Australia.
We do. Also,
I see bugs that are the size of people out in your country.
So sticking with the steak. So I've been going for a big Wagyu rump at the moment. So there's this butcher.
Is Wagyu more expensive out there? But because
I've got a good butcher that does the Wagyu rump at a good price. I think it's around 30 Australian dollars a kilo. So it's not that expensive if you're getting one steak. And then I leave it out, let it get to room temperature, season it, salt and pepper. I've got this little smoky rub that I might put on it sometimes. And then I'll sear it in a very hot pan, get some nice caramelization going on the outside of the steak. Then I like to put it in an oven to finish it. So I'll get an oven, and usually I'll get an onion and cut it in half and put the steak on the onion. So it's sitting high in the pan on the onion. And then I'll put it in the oven for another like 5 minutes if the oven's hot to finish it off. And then I love it with chips or mashed potato or roast kifla potatoes. And I like peppercorn sauce or mushroom sauce.
Okay, mushroom sauce. Not really like a big watery sauce, guys. It's gotta be like thick and creamy, like a good thick and creamy sauce. Peppercorn can be watery depending. Yeah, I know. There you go. There are more dick jokes. Peppercorn could be watery depending on how you make it, but yeah.
Great. And I like one good steak a week. Like I think you need one a week.
Yeah, one a week. Yeah. I like, I do usually red meat every night for dinner. And then I'll do like one steak dinner, probably like on a Saturday or Sunday night.
Love it.
So, yeah.
Michigan man, what will you do as producer to help promote the network and find a real CEO? Well, I think we've answered that. This is Dr. Joe. He's an idiot. Would Tommy let Menas suck his penis to get a chance to produce the KMS?
How much money do I get in return?
I don't know. It's just no. If Kirk said you will get the job if you let Menas do this,
what's the number that I'm getting paid?
Well, I don't know.
If it's 200, if it's 250, then yes.
Say
250 grand,
75 to 90 a year. I think. Say Carl's on around 80 a year.
I'm good.
No, you need to get paid more than that.
I need to get paid a lot more than that.
But I'm doing the sucking in this instance.
There's an age limit, and you're over it.
That's true. Well, I'm 47. You're 32.
You're way over it. You're way over it.
I mean, I'm not queuing up for this, by the way.
I'm very ageist on this point, so sorry.
Great.
But if it's for 250 grand, I've got to think about that.
I'd do it for 250 grand. So
absolutely,
whatever. Yeah. We'll split the money.
It's not like he doesn't have it.
Yes, exactly. All right, that was all the listener questions. So we end Minifandom with a tribute to Red's dead parents about, what could they be watching up in heaven at the moment. And I'll start it off.
I hope they were fucking watching last night.
Well, I think they were, absolutely. I've been watching at the moment. I saw a movie called Strays on the weekend, which was funny. It was very funny, but it was stupid. And then I've been watching two shows, Rogue Heroes, which is about the formation of the SAS. You would love it, all those big manly guys running around. So Rogue Heroes, I don't know where it is in the States, but it's brilliant. And another one, A Spy Among Friends, which is a show about a spy in the 50s and 60s in Britain. A bit slower than Rogue Heroes, but certainly worth watching. What have you been watching, Tommy? What do you watch?
I usually just shut it down after. I focus on my job. So
really, you don't watch TV?
No. So because of my job, I wake up, go to the gym, or I'll go on a run. Now, I usually lift. I used to lift in the morning. Now I just run, just because of the way I'm training. Go to work from 5 to 9. Go to the gym from like 9:30 to noon. Come home, sleep, eat. I usually just sit in silence because I can just get into a world where, I'm listening to the last half hour of Kirk live.
Fantastic. I mean, that's the sort of attitude Kirk wants to be as producer. He doesn't want people going home and having a life. He wants them focused 24 hours KMS. And it sounds like you could be that person. Like, there's no way, like Montante and Mike in the Minifans was a little bit concerned that Sunday is his big football day, and he starts drinking at 11 a.m. and by the last game of football, he's done all his money. He can't talk. He crawls to bed and passes out with I don't know what he's been drinking. Whereas he might have to go in and record in studio on a Sunday night. So sounds like you wouldn't have those problems.
No, I mean, obviously I'm a huge New York Giants fan, but most of those games take place at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I like having my Mondays because I like to have a strong Monday. I like to go to the gym and have a good workout on Monday. I don't like having a lazy Monday. I think Mondays are the most important day of the week.
Like it. You're a go-getter.
I don't fuck around. I went in there last night, ready to play. I got knocked off my game last night a little for the first time in a very long time. It's like when you get. It's like when a fighter goes down or up a weight, and it's your first. It's like because I'm going up a weight in this scenario, and you're going in there to your first fight in a heavyweight fight, and you get your fucking teeth kicked in. but you survive all 5 rounds.
You did.
That's
came
what
home
that's
strong.
so, you know, next time, a little bit more aware of what I'm walking into. So we'll see.
You'll get another go. You'll definitely get another go.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
Well,
Because there's
Tommy,
layers here. Like,
yeah.
I absolutely. There's not many people that are left that are my age that are actually fucking grinding this way, the way I do in radio. I went to, like, you don't even know my career story yet. You just know
Yeah.
that I just some
I don't.
random dude from Providence that just came out on fucking KMS last night. That's all you know about me. You don't
Yeah,
know that I got
that's
through
right.
my life and moved to Pensacola and changed my name just to fucking keep a radio job, then get fired and then go compete against that radio station. You know, like there's so much that I can bring to this show. But hey, you know, it's whether or not they want me. So we'll see.
Well, I think you'll definitely get another chance, and you've showed a more pensive side tonight. How did you? The one thing I wanted to ask you is, how did your dad react to the news last night? Because he
Yeah,
strict Catholic.
he's not. Yeah, he's just not in the. He's not going to be in the world. So I wouldn't.
Talk
I
about
don't
that.
prefer
Don't
to.
talk about it. You don't bring it up. It's fine.
My dad is. Yeah, I wouldn't go there with him. My mom. We're
But he
talking
knows
today.
now, won't he? Doesn't he know?
Yeah, he knows. He knows.
Okay.
He absolutely knows.
Well, Tommy, thanks for joining me on Minifandom. It's been great to meet
I
you.
think it's a good episode.
Yeah, it was a little bit somber. But you've had a very, very draining.
It's been a very long 24 hours.
You know, so I know you're due on Poppy's Kitchen later this week. So thanks for appearing on the network.
And Mike on the Minifans.
Great. So I'll see you again on Friday. And I should have a bit more of an update there on how this producer battle's going. But yeah, as I said, just super brave of you. You know, it was a great show, but also, you know, it has real world consequences for you. And, you know, the Minifans are there for you. You know, you're part of the family now, like you were before, but now, you know, you're really part of the family. You brought us into this very private thing. And again, well done. And thanks for joining me.
Menners, it was a pleasure.
All right, listeners.
More.
Definitely. Well, that was Tommy Quinlan, and we'll be back soon.